Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're heading north, focusing on a wine region maybe not always top of mind, Canada. Often overlooked, but really making waves now as a vanguard of quality.
It really is. And the sources we looked at, they tell this incredible story. It's not just about making decent wine in a cold place. Canadian viticulture is, at its core, about resilience, about innovation, and this deep adaptation to, frankly, a really tough terroir.
Yeah, implacable is a good word for it.
They didn't just cope with the cold, they kind of harnessed it, turned it into a signature.
Exactly. So our mission today is to give you that shortcut. How did Canada leverage its extreme geography to produce world-class wine? We'll cover the key regions, the grapes you need to know, and those experiences you should absolutely consider if you're planning a trip.
And proof that this isn't just a niche thing. Look at the VQA system Vintners Quality Alliance, kicked off in Ontario and BC initially. That was the game changer for quality control. It's their equivalent of the European DOC or AOC systems guaranteeing standards. It really signaled, okay, we're serious about this.
Okay, let's dig into that foundation, because the climate, it's the star, right? But it's such a paradox. This freezing cold that could kill the vines. How is that also their biggest asset?
It boils down to something called thermal amplitude. Basically, you get these really intense sunny days, sometimes pretty warm, but then the temperature plummets at night.
That big swing.
That huge swing is crucial. The daytime sun develops the sugars and fruit flavors, but those cold nights, they lock in the grape's natural acidity, keeps everything vibrant.
So that acidity is the secret sauce.
It really is. It provides balance, freshness, it makes the wines complex, lively, and importantly gives them the structure to age really well.
Okay, so they use the cold swings during the growing season, but then there's winter. How do they keep the vines alive through those, truly brutal freezes?
Right, survival means getting clever with geography and technique. The big one, especially in Ontario's Niagara Peninsula, is the lake effect. Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, they're massive.
Like giant radiators.
Sort of, yeah. They soak up heat all summer and release it slowly through the fall. This pushes back the first frost, extends the ripening season, gives those grapes crucial extra time.
But that won't work everywhere, right? What about somewhere like Quebec, where it gets even colder much faster?
Then you see these really protective, hands-on methods. A key one is hilling up. Just before the deep freeze hits, crews go out and mound soil high up around the base of each vine.
Like tucking them into bed.
Exactly. It insulates the graft union, the most vulnerable part, from that killing cold. It's an old technique, but absolutely vital there.
Let's talk grapes, because the history there is really interesting. It wasn't always Pinot Noir and Riesling. They started with hybrids back in the 19th century, like just trying to find something that would survive.
Precisely. Hardy local hybrids were the only option initially, but then around the 1970s, things started shifting dramatically. There was this big push and a lot of investment towards planting Vitis vinifera.
The classic European grapes.
Yeah, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Riesling, Merlot, the big names.
Hang on, that sounds incredibly risky. Planting those notoriously sensitive grapes, knowing you could lose everything to an early freeze. How did that even work economically?
That's a really good question. And the answer is technology and smart viticulture. We're talking sophisticated winemaking, coming in temperature-controlled fermentation, really precise canopy management to maximize sun exposure.
In finding the right spots.
Absolutely critical. Choosing plots with the best drainage, the most benefit from the lake effect, maybe the perfect slope. It was about managing that risk to produce these refined, complex, dry wines.
But those tough original hybrid grapes that had just vanished, did they?
Yeah. Oh, no, not at all. They're still super important, especially in the really cold zones like Quebec and Nova Scotia. Hybrids like Vidal, Saval Blanc, even the red Bacon Noir, they're the workhorses where Vitis vinifera just struggles too much.
Okay, so hybrids are the backbone in some places, but let's talk about the crown jewel, the wine everyone associates with Canada, ice wine, the liquid ambassador.
Ice wine really is something special. It embodies that Canadian spirit of risk and reward, I think. To get that VQA seal, the grapes, usually Vidal, Riesling, or sometimes Cabernet Franc, have to hang on the vine until it hits at least -8 degrees Celsius.
-8. And the harvest itself sounds intense.
It's brutal. The sources describe crews out there in the dead of night, bitter cold, often snowing, harvesting by hand, because they have to pick and press the grapes while they're still frozen solid.
Wow. Within a tiny window of opportunity.
Total dedication. So the science is pretty cool. When you press those frozen
The water stays behind as ice?
Exactly. The water is trapped as ice crystals, so what comes out is this incredibly concentrated juice, super high in sugars, acids, and all those intense flavors, and that's what gives you that rich, viscous, almost syrupy texture.
And the taste? Intense apricot honey, tropical fruit notes, it's amazing. But for someone listening, how do you even pair something that rich and sweet? Doesn't it just overpower dessert?
That's the common thought, but the trick is balance. The classic pairing isn't actually sweet, it's something strong and savory, like a really punchy blue cheese. Roquefort is perfect.
Salty and sweet.
The saltiness and funkiness of the cheese just cut beautifully through the sweetness, and that amazing Canadian acidity cleanses the palate. If you do go sweet, think simple fruit desserts like a warm apple tart. Avoid heavy chocolate.
Good tip. And if you're planning a trip around ice wine, there are some must-do experiences. You mentioned Peller Estates in Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Yes, definitely check out their 10 Below Ice Wine Lounge. You literally taste the ice wine in this bar made of ice, kept at -10 Celsius. It really connects you to those harvest conditions.
Gives you perspective.
For sure. And also in Enniskillen, they often do vertical tastings of ice wine, which is fascinating, tasting different vintages side by side to see how this unique wine evolves with age.
Okay, let's jump across the country. Regional deep dive, starting out west. British Columbia, specifically the Okanagan Valley.
Right, the Okanagan. It's another place of contrasts. You've got this semi-arid, almost desert climate, over 2,000 hours of sunshine a year, nestled in this deep valley shaped by glaciers.
So heat, but moderated.
Exactly. Modulated by the deep lakes left by the glaciers, and these really interesting mineral-rich glacial soils.
And how does that translate to the wines? What are the stars?
For reds, Pinot Noir and Merlot really shine. The Okanagan Pinot Noir often has this wonderful elegance, bright red fruit cherry, raspberry thanks to the sun and cool nights. Merlot gets quite full-bodied but keeps a freshness, showing plum, maybe some spice.
And whites?
Pinot Gris is a standout. It gets this real vibrancy, lots of pear and apricot notes. It captures that sunshine but with that hallmark acidity. Chardonnay does really well too.
And thinking about food pairings, it must reflect that Pacific influence.
Totally. The classic advice is spot on. Pair those crisp whites, like the Pinot Gris, with wild Pacific salmon. Simple, perfect. And for the richer reds, think local game like bison.
And winery experiences in BC seem quite distinct. Mission Hill Family Estate sounds almost European.
It really does. The architecture is stunning, very grand, almost like a castle. They have this iconic tasting room in what they call the cathedral cellar. It feels very old world.
And then completely different, you have Summerhill Pyramid Winery.
Yeah, Summerhill is all about the organic and biodynamic approach. They're real pioneers in that respect in BC, and famously, they age their wines in an actual pyramid structure.
Yeah, pyramid. Seriously.
Seriously. They believe it helps concentrate the wine's energy, improves aging. It's central to their philosophy, a very different vibe.
Okay, let's swing back east to Ontario, but look beyond ice wine this time. Niagara Peninsula, we know the lake effect is key, and you mentioned limestone soils.
Yeah, those calciferous soils are really important, especially for the dry wines. Niagara's dry wines are world-class and honestly deserve more attention globally. Riesling is probably the flagship white.
Because of the acidity in soil.
Exactly. That limestone gives it minerality, and the cool climate ensures high acidity. So it's incredibly crisp and zesty when young, but it ages beautifully, developing those complex petrol notes that Riesling lovers geek out over.
And for his signature dry red.
It has to be Cabernet Franc. It thrives there. It makes these elegant, medium-bodied reds. You get the characteristic green pepper and cherry notes, but with this real finesse. People often compare it favorably to Cab Franc from France's Loire Valley.
High praise indeed. Okay, let's push even further east now to the regions really on the frontier, Quebec and Nova Scotia. The cold vanguards, as our sources called them.
Right. Quebec, as we said, the cold means hybrids like Saval Blanc and Vidal are essential. But a huge draw there, and a real specialty, is their ice cider.
Made from apples using the same freezing principle.
Precisely. Apples are left to freeze naturally, concentrating the sugars. It makes this intense, complex, beautifully balanced dessert cider. Vignoble de l'Orpailleur is a really well-known producer, a pioneer for both wines and ciders there.
And Nova Scotia seems to have carved out a niche in sparkling wine.
They absolutely have. They're really becoming known as the vanguard of Canadian sparkling. The cool maritime climate and high natural acidity in the grapes are perfect for traditional method sparklers.
Like champagne method.
Exactly. And producers like Benjamin Bridge Vineyards are getting serious recognition. The sources often compare their quality and style to really good French Cremant, especially from the Loire.
Okay, Canada is huge. We need to give some practical advice here. If someone listening is thinking about an eno-tourism trip, how should they approach planning? It seems overwhelming.
Yeah. Rule number one, given the sheer size, focus. Pick one major region per trip. Trying to do Niagara, the Okanagan, and the East Coast in one go. You'll just spend all your time traveling.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So choose Niagara or Okanagan or maybe the Maritimes. When's the best time to go?
For the nicest weather and scenery, the shoulder seasons are great. Spring, say April to June, you see the vines budding. Or fall, September into November, you get harvest activity and that incredible autumn foliage.
But if you want that truly unique Canadian wine experience,
Then you have to consider winter, specifically mid-January to mid-February. That's prime ice wine harvest time. It's cold, obviously, but many regions have winter wine festivals. It's a really special atmosphere.
and getting around.
Staying.
A rental car offers the most flexibility for exploring different wineries, but, if you plan on doing serious tasting, maybe look into guided tours or winery shuttle buses. Especially in places like Niagara-on-the-Lake or the Okanagan, there are also fantastic cycling routes between wineries.
That sounds nice.
It really is. And for accommodation, try to stay on a vineyard if you can.
Yeah.
Lots offer B&Bs, guest houses, even small luxury resorts, waking up right there surrounded by the vines. It's full immersion. So wrapping this up, what's striking is how Canadian wine isn't just about surviving the cold. It's this blend of tradition, high-tech innovation, and increasingly a real focus on sustainability, right?
Yeah.
With places like Summerhill or Taws in Ontario pushing organic and biodynamic practices.
Absolutely. They took what seemed like a massive disadvantage to the climate and turned it into their unique strength. Canada isn't just emerging anymore. It's an established and still rising player on the world wine stage precisely because it embraced its challenging terroir.
Okay, so here's the final thought we want to leave you with today. The sources mentioned that Canadian viticulture is still expanding, pushing boundaries. Places like New Brunswick are experimenting with even newer, super cold-hardy hybrids like Marquette and Frontenac. So as this continues, where do you think the next great Canadian wine region might pop up? And what grape might become its signature?
Something to think about while you track down some of that Nova Scotia sparkling wine.
Definitely food for thought. Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll see you next time.